Happy Monday, and welcome back to the Lorden Arts channel. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here today. Case Cracked is the show where we look into a mystery and what are the critical pieces that help solve that mystery. Today's case is about Jane Doe, number 40. The day that Donald McIsaac went digging for turtle eggs did not end the way he expected. It was Friday, October 1st, 1976, and 17-year-old Donald had recently captured a turtle on the beach of Lake Merced in San Francisco. Hoping to find eggs near the area he had found the turtle, he took his dog and headed down to the beach. As Donald neared the spot behind a pumping station, his dog ran ahead to something sticking out of the sand. As he drew closer, he could see that it was a human hand. Police would soon discover the remains of a young woman 6 inches below the surface of the sandy soil and about 20 feet from the shoreline. There were no clues at the crime scene, and the badly decomposed body offered little to learn about the woman herself. Investigators were able to determine that she was Asian and appeared to be between the ages of 14 and 20. She had been in her shallow grave anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks. Petite, with brown hair, she unfortunately had no identification. Her only possessions were gold earrings, a Timex watch, and an owl pendant on a gold chain that had been placed inside her pants pocket. An autopsy would show that she had died from strangulation. As investigators ruled her death a homicide, she was given the name Jane Doe, number 40. In the beginning, there were almost no clues to follow, but police hoped that the young woman's necklace was unique enough that someone could identify it. Unfortunately, after releasing photos, no one came forward. With just over 700,000 people living in the Bay Area at that time, and with no leads coming in, investigators had nowhere else to go with this case. Other cases would take precedent, with every few years them still bringing out Jane Doe number 40's case and re-examining it in the hopes of finding new information. But even with that diligence, nothing would come about for 43 years. Then, in 2019, as investigators combed through unsolved missing persons cases, they found a report filed in 2017. The time frame coincided with Jane Doe number 40's discovery. A man named William Shin reported that as a child, he had a 14-year-old half-sister who disappeared in the Bay Area and had never been found. In June of 2019, it was decided that DNA samples would be taken from one of the girl's last living, full-blooded relatives, a woman named Judy Gifford. Dental records and pictures that the family still had in their possession were also submitted. When investigators reviewed the pictures from the young woman's childhood, they noticed that in some of the 8th grade pictures, the girl was wearing the same chain and owl pendant that were found at the crime scene. Through the DNA samples, the California Department of Justice Missing Persons Laboratory determined that the unidentified victim's familial DNA matched that of her aunt. The young woman would no longer be called Jane Doe number 40 and would get her name back. She was Judy Shin Gifford. Judy Shin was born into a loving family in 1962 in Korea. Not long after her birth, her father's sister, Oji, moved from Korea with her husband to Hawaii. The whole extended family moved with them, but not Judy's parents. Judy's father could not convince his wife to move to America, so the two decided to file for divorce. According to Korean customs, in a divorce situation, the father retains custody of any children. So, with Judy in tow, Mr. Shin caught up with Oji and her husband John in Hawaii in 1963. The quickest way to achieve citizenship at that time was to enlist in the armed forces, so Judy's father joined the Army. But being a single father in the Army was tough on both father and daughter. It was decided that Oji and John would adopt Judy and care for her until her father got out of the Army, remarried, and settled back down. In 1964, Judy was formally adopted and changed her name from Judy Shin to Gifford. By 1968, Mr. Shin, who was still enlisted, met a woman named Sunny. The two married in 1969 and over the next 3 years had a boy named William and a girl named Susan. After moving all over the world for his deployment, finally he was placed at his final duty station at the Presidio of San Francisco before he was medically discharged. From there, the family moved and lived in the Park Merced community until tragedy struck in 1974. John Gifford passed away suddenly from a heart attack, leaving OG to raise and care for their 3 children. 2 years after his death, Judy's grades began to drop as she started sneaking out of the house at night and got herself into trouble with law enforcement. OG felt that she needed a strong male figure in her life and decided it was time for her to return to her biological father. At the start of the summer of 1976, OG and Judy flew from New Jersey to San Francisco, where she left Judy behind in her father's care. Unfortunately, their happy reunion would be short-lived. Judy complained that she wanted to move back to New Jersey with her aunt. The family tried to pull together and make it work, but by the end of summer, Judy had disappeared. Years later, when her siblings asked where she went, they were told that she had flown back to New Jersey to be with Aunt OG. But in 1988, when William was 18, he visited OG for the first time since childhood and immediately asked about Judy. To his surprise and disappointment, she stated that she had not seen Judy since the summer of 1976 and had assumed she had run away from her father. She had never gone back to New Jersey as his parents had stated. When investigators visited her home in 2019, OG had lived in the same house just outside of Fort Dix with the same telephone number for over 40 years. She feared that if she left, it could prevent Judy from ever knowing how to get a hold of her and possibly get the help that Judy needed. OG Gifford, who is now 86, has lived with a deep sense of regret and remorse over the last telephone conversation that she had with Judy. She has always wished that when Judy called and wanted to return to New Jersey, that instead of making her stay in San Francisco, she had bought her a plane ticket and taken her home. On November 14, 2019, SFPD announced Jane Doe No. 40's true identity. The following week, on November 22nd, New Jersey State Police visited Aunt OG's home to deliver the news that her niece was the cold case victim. Both she and William were shocked that Judy's death was so close to the time when she arrived in 1976 and so close to her home in Park Merced, which was within 2 miles of where she was found. This new information does offer some comfort to the family. OG would state, quote, "I always wondered what happened to her. My mind is finally at peace. God rest her soul." For Aunt OG, this may be a case cracked. However, the investigation into Judy Gifford's death remains open, and San Francisco police are still looking for answers. If you have any information regarding the disappearance or death of Judy Gifford, please call the SFPD Tip Line at 1-415-575-4444. Tipsters may remain anonymous. I would like to give a big thank you to San Francisco Chronicle, Yahoo.com, Inquirer.com, KTVU, Web Sleuths, MSN.com, Oxygen.com, CharlieProject.org, and I also wanted to make a very special thank you to William for posting photos and sharing his and his family's story and plenty of additional information about Judy on Web Sleuths. Of course, our final thank you goes to Christy Arnhart for researching and writing up today's case, and here she is now to discuss it with me. Hey, Christy.
Hey.
Thank you so much for your work on this story. I know it's a tragic story, but there's this kind of silver lining light in it. I'm so happy the identification was made.
Oh, yeah.
I'm really happy the family has answers. Well, some answers. That's the part where it gets kind of mixed up for me. One of the things I'm wondering about is Judy the only victim of whoever did this to her?
You would think not.
That's kind of where I'm going with it too. And I think you could look at that one of two ways. I mean, it's a strong possibility that the person got away with we know they got away with what they did to Judy, but there's a chance that if they are a repeat offender or if they've done this to other people, there's some chance that maybe they did actually wind up facing justice at some point. And I don't know. I kind of hope that is an outcome that maybe we won't ever come to fully understand, but maybe this universe takes care of situations like this. I don't know. I wish.
I think so.
Yeah. So there's also the question about the family, about a little kind of lie within the family about what happened to Judy and where she went. Do you have any feelings about that? You ever face anything like that?
I really haven't. I don't know why, unless they feared discrimination or some kind of recrimination because of their nationality. If they went public for some reason, I really don't know why they would hide that within the family. That
Yeah.
stumped me.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about that. I mean, I think we've all had situations where there's been secrets in our family or things that we're supposed to keep.
Mhm.
And sometimes those are around protecting children. So I could see that maybe they didn't want to sit William down. And I don't know exactly how old he was when he was asking about this, but maybe they didn't want to sit him down and say, well, your sister actually ran away. We've never heard from her. We don't know where she is.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true. I didn't think about that. That can really scar a kid.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. But it's pretty interesting that William actually gets to the point of almost being so proud about his family that he goes on web sleuths
Hmm.
and finds the thread about this case. And then he might be the most. I've seen family members that have been very active on threads before, but
Hmm.
not like, I mean, he is an open book. He just opened it up. He pulled out all kinds of different pictures. Many of the pictures that you saw in today's episode actually came from William. That's why I wanted to give him a special thanks. But I also just wanted to touch on, I know that families sometimes struggle when they have cases like this, and then all of a sudden it gets thrown into media or social media, and how do you respond to that? By the end of that thread, you see that there are no questions left. Like, he really just addresses everything that he can, and the thread kind of takes a rest.
Hmm.
So I just wanted to note that for some people that are out there, maybe you're dealing with something like this, and you don't want to deal with the unending questions. William actually, he put it to rest. He just went there and put everything out there. Um, it's a different approach. I really haven't seen it done before. What were your feelings when you bumped into his information on that?
It was just incredible. There's so much love in it.
Yeah.
And one of the things I love about being able to do what I do is that these people get a little bit of immortality.
Yeah.
They're not forgotten for that much longer because of us. And Judy's one of those stories that even though it's tragic, I feel blessed that I got to know her a little bit. And he helps so much with that. If you get a chance, you have to check out the Web Sleuths thread because it is incredible.
I think that's what gets me. Like the thread, the way that he talks about his love for his family just oozes through those postings. Like, he's so proud and loving with his family, despite having faced this dark spot, and even had some family members that weren't being upfront with him when he was
Yeah.
young and asking about this. So yeah, I think there's lessons that we could learn from William on that. I really
Oh,
really appreciate that.
definitely could take a page from his book. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, big question about her being found so close to home. I just can't believe that. 2 miles from where she was living.
That really bothered me. And it makes me wonder if she actually even ran away from home. I mean, it's only 2 miles.
Hmm.
She could have been doing anything. I mean, she could have been just out walking. She could have been going to the beach. She could have been going to a store. She didn't necessarily have to be running away at that point.
That's a really good question. That's a really good question. Yeah. Now you've thrown my brain into a whole different line of questioning about
Yeah.
what could be going on with that case. But yeah, well, I'm happy. I'm happy that the family does have the answers they do have. I'm also happy that SFPD is still open on helping to work this case,
Oh,
and that
yeah.
they were so diligent about getting back to it and trying to re-raise exposure. And just what a great connection of, we have this necklace. Oh, we've got this missing persons report. Let's look at those photos. Wow, the necklace is in the photos. Like, just that's like I don't know, crime solving 101.
Something that also bothered me, and I just wanted to throw it out there for people, see what they thought. The necklace being placed in her pocket. That seems to be something caring.
Right.
And you would think that someone who was murdering you would do that. You would actually think that they would keep that as a trophy. So I wonder, why was the necklace even off? Had she broke the chain that day? I don't feel like the murderer did that.
Yeah, that is an interesting side effect. Why would the necklace have been? The necklace being broken during the act of strangulation would make sense, but then why? Well, if it was somewhere else, if it was at the murderer's home
Mm,
and they didn't want the item left behind to be found, and
That's
they
true.
saw that it was lying next to her, maybe they could have put it in her pocket and then taken her. That's a really good question. We don't know about this case. Is that the actual scene of the crime, or is that just a dump site?
Yeah, that made me wonder because it did. It seemed like such a nice thing to do.
Right.
You wouldn't expect it.
Right. Yeah. Unless, like I said, it's in your house and you're just trying to clean up after yourself and make sure you
Yeah,
don't get
absolutely.
busted. But well, thank you so much, Christy. Really appreciate all your work on today's episode. And I've got some other people to thank right now. Thank you, PayPal supporters Melissa Heinbach, Amanda Beard, and Think Mutiny Publishing. Also, a special thank you to Christina Kubicek for her recent PayPal donation and for being such a strong supporter on our recent live streams as well. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit lordandarts.com. There you can sign up for Patreon, sign up for PayPal, or buy merchandise. All of it keeps us here with limited commercials, and we really appreciate your support. Remember, you can get another Lord and Arts story every week on the Seriously Mysterious podcast. A new episode is coming tomorrow and every Tuesday after that. Visit www.seriouslymysterious.com and remember to subscribe on your favorite podcatchers. Or I'll see you again on YouTube on Wednesday with a new episode of Searchlight right here on the Lord and Arts channel.